It is, of course, an unprecedented moment for us in South Africa as former President Jacob Zuma is being held at the Estcourt Correctional Centre, we can now confirm, in KwaZulu-Natal after handing himself over ahead of the midnight deadline. Zuma's arrest follows a lengthy legal battle to avoid the Constitutional Court's incarceration order. Now, the country's highest court sentenced the former president to 15 months in jail for contempt of court after he failed to attend hearings of the state capture inquiry. The convoy taking Zuma from his Nkandla home left after one last-ditch attempt by Zuma's lawyers to prevent their client's arrest. And they asked Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo to instruct the police to stay the arrest until judgment in the application for a suspension order is delivered by the Pietermaritzburg High Court on Friday. However, his foundation later tweeted that Zuma had in fact decided to comply with the incarceration order, and the police ministry confirmed that the former president had been arrested. So throughout the morning, we'll be crossing to our reporters in KwaZulu-Natal, Simpiwe Makanya, Samkele Maseko, Jadely Paulser, Ayanda, everybody out there in KwaZulu-Natal. We'll cross to them throughout the morning, but we'll also get reaction from various role players and stakeholders, and also, of course, political analysts, as we cross now to Ralph Mathekga, who's going to help us unpack some of these latest developments. Ralph, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina, and good morning to Morning Live viewers.
Ralph, of course, you know, an unprecedented moment, but not without the drama that preceded it all.
I mean, Sakina, even saying it's unprecedented, one can say slightly is an understatement. I mean, one would have not anticipated such kind of a move that it would happen. Of course, it was getting to that point because the former president had actually been daring the judiciary. He acted outside the judiciary. And the issue, Sakina, got to a point where failure to arrest him would actually raise questions as to whether South Africa adheres to the rule of law, the principle of the rule of law, that everyone is equal before the law. So it has gotten to the point where there was no other way but to expedite the arrest of Mr. Zuma. And indeed, we have not seen this. I mean, this is the highest ranking ANC politician to have been incarcerated on acts that one can say relate to having to answer to corruption, because that is where he actually refused to participate working out of the Zondo Commission. So it's quite a major development. It is the big test to our judiciary, our judicial system, Sakina. And so far, it appears that our judicial system, the judicial officials, the judges, they stood firm and they wanted the order to actually be executed. As you and I are talking, the order has been executed. Of course, Mr. Zuma still has a leverage to actually fight and petition the court. He has petitioned the Constitutional Court to look into that decision. It will have looked quite ugly, Sakina, had he not handed himself over and still went to the same court 2 days down the line and say, look at your decision. So at least he complied, and perhaps now he's got at least a leg to stand on to try to say to the court that, look at my condition. Perhaps he can go and do the same plea that he refused to do when the court asked him to come before it and indicate how the court ought to deal with his behavior. So unprecedented, Sakina, a major development, a major test on our legal system, a major test on our democracy. We have no precedent in terms of the law, how to deal with this. Even the case law that is being relied upon by the lawyers dealing with the pushback, dealing with his petition, you can see there is no clearly defined precedent in relation to this. This is actually uncharted territory for South Africa.
And of course, Ralph, as we saw, it wasn't, without any pushback, of course, on the side of the former president. And some would even say he had painted himself into a very neat corner there and had no option in the end, because it then became very clear, as you said, case law also being pushed to the max here, because the former president did, of course, stay until the very last moment before he handed himself over. But even then, as we understand, there was some negotiations that took place for him to actually do that.
There was a pushback, Sakina. There is a pushback on multiple fronts. The pushback through the litigation process, two litigation underway. The High Court in Pietermaritzburg, unprecedented move where Mr. Zuma, through his legal representative, approached that court to look into the decision of the Concord. Actually, the court actually feeling quite uncomfortable, saying to Mr. Zuma, are you asking us to give an order that will interfere with the execution of the apex court? The court is worried. We are still waiting for judgment. But on another front as well, Sakina, you have Mr. Zuma directly petitioning the Concord. Also, another front of a pushback against this, it is the political one, what got underway in Nkandla. Mr. Zuma going to court as well in that Pietermaritzburg High Court, saying his arrest is almost impossible to effect because of what he actually orchestrated outside in Nkandla. So this has been quite a difficult case. It's still going on. There is no doubt that his legal representative will try to mount another attempt to set aside this in the Concord when the Concord sit to look into this. The political, I'll say, pushback, it is the one that now seems to be on the side. It's not working now. It did not work. It could not buy him even a day of freedom past the time that the court stipulated he should be incarcerated. So now what is being left now, it is the legal, I would say the legal leg that is pursuing. Remember, Sakina, he walked out of the legal system. This is also unprecedented. We have never had a case whereby someone say to the judiciary that, look, I'm not interested in your deliberation. I will not subject myself to your determination. And after that, the very same person coming back and saying, can you hear me? And that is why the lawyers there in Pietermaritzburg High Court, they argued that he disentitled himself to any relief through these judicial processes. He's a recalcitrant litigant. He's a serial litigant, only interested in litigation that will result in him evading responsibility. We will see whether the court will paint him as that, as the court will therefore be looking into its own decision regarding his incarceration. It is something that I will say students in various law schools are looking into this case and looking as to what does it mean about the rule of law, what does it mean about procedure, due process as well. The fact that the Deputy Chief Justice went straight to the Constitutional Court, because knowing that with Mr. Zuma, you are going to end up there. Don't waste time at a trial court because it is going there. We're going to see as to what does this say about our legal and our judicial system. Has it come out strong out of this, or are there some weaknesses that need to be dealt with? Indeed, Mr. Zuma has set us on a path of rapid reform in the jurisprudence, reform or maybe rapid development in our jurisprudence. We are yet to fully grasp what just happens because we have not reached an end of it yet, Sakina.
And just finally, Ralph, there has, of course, been concern of a political upheaval, of a possible bloodshed and confrontation between those supporting former President Jacob Zuma and law enforcement officials in the event that they would have had to go in to actually arrest the former president. What do we make of that now in the aftermath of him being incarcerated? Are we still likely to see any sort of pushback from that front, where his supporters will still come out and make political statements in any sort of big, meaningful way?
Well, people are entitled to make political statements, but certainly the ANC also, because those supporters are still within the ANC. They are members of ANC. We have seen the ANC, the recent special ANC meeting statement where the ANC actually is stating out that those that support this kind of behavior or those that gathered in Nkandla, they will be disciplined, the organizers of that. The party is laying down the rules, Sakina, on this. Of course, there will be a pushback, and don't be surprised if some come out and say that this spells a huge crisis within the ANC to a point where a special conference is required. Of course, those who stand on the other side of the fence will say that this has got nothing to do with it does not warrant a special conference. This is a misdemeanor behavior, criminal misdemeanor behavior by one former head of state, and it should be dealt with as such. It is not a crisis within the ANC or the country. It is just a crisis at a corner or in a corner in the ANC. It is not meant to be, it should not be dealt with as a wider problem. The issue here, Sakina, will be, will the ANC succeed in isolating Mr. Zuma from the branches of the ANC? That stands to be seen.
Thanks so much for your time this morning. Political analyst Ralph Mathekga there. And we continue getting reaction from political parties. We'll check in with our reporters, get more analysis, all of that throughout the morning.